For SaaS, there's benchmarks like say 3-to-1 lifetime value to customer acquisition. And that's helpful because it gives a benchmark and a threshold where you really don't want to acquire a customer because at a certain point, it no longer makes sense because you'll be eating into profits. Are there certain benchmarks you see? And of course, it depends on niche and average order value for e-commerce in terms of lifetime value to CAC ratio.
Yeah, strangely enough, it's actually about the same. And it's just about profitability. So you generally want to be in the same, at least at that same range, because you have to think about sort of that lifetime value. And for most of it, they think of it as sales, not necessarily margin. But if you think of, for most businesses, your gross margin's hopefully around 60%. Your general administrative, it is about 20, is about 15%. Your 10%, 10 to 15%. Your marketing expenses, no more than 20%. And so ultimately, you're hopefully making about somewhere between 10 and 20% profit on each order. That's kind of your long-term goal. And so if you think about that from a LTV perspective, you're going to say, oh, I want my sales to be about 3x my acquisition cost. And so it's funny that that's the benchmark that you have for a lot of, software as a service company. It's very much in line for a lot of direct to consumer brands. And so that sort of really drives like your product cost or what your average order value is on that first order, and your product cost can really drive what are you able to spend in terms of acquisition cost. Mm-hmm. And so it is really interesting, like how similar those two are. And, I'd say the only variation from where that tends to kind of break down a little bit is products that are really inexpensive, but have like a really high repurchase. And so if I sell something for $10, but I sell 12 of them, that's going to be, you're still looking at sort of that same kind of comparison, but it's the repurchase frequency is so much more. And so that's really the only big difference that you see from that LTV to CAC side.
I was wondering about examples like that, because I might think of Billy razors or native deodorant, where even at a high-end deodorant, $10-12, and they're running ads behind it, they're probably acquiring the first one at a loss. But again, looking at their data, making their historically informed assumptions, they must assume, we'll sell X more to this person.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's where that comes in immensely, is for lower cost items, you're just assuming a higher repurchase rate to get you there, because you almost have to lose money on that first order. And so then your repurchase rate becomes really, really important. It's a very different, ultimately you're trying to get to how much revenue are you generating per customer over the lifetime. And so for those soaps and razors and say very low cost, sort of replenishable, they're still trying to get to the same profit per customer that somebody like a Casper is. It's just Casper has to do it in one order and your Billy razors can do it over, maybe 10, 12, 15 orders.